chapter 6, reading a story for its elements, which is it's this beginning of fiction poetry. And in my first comfort detail, it says first reading. It says the first time when we read something is the most fruitful times. When you're first exposed to a good story, you experience the pleasure of surprise because the fiction writer has used an experience to technique to create a fresh impression, which is, usually when you read something for the first time or you're experiencing something for the first time, you usually have a more excitement, or you're more thrilled to read about it because you're not used to the same old ordinary habit that you're always used to. And in a couple of the story, the A&P by John Updike, you read the first 3 lines of it, and you kind of have, it's a brand new feeling, because it's just a little different than any story I've read before, just from the first couple lines. And then the second part is a critical reading, and it talks about craft, and the craft is what the poet uses to put into the what he uses to make his story a little different or distinct itself from other people by using the plot, character, settings, point of views, the language they use, the themes, and the symbols that symbolizes the things and what they write. And in the A&P story by John Updike, it's talking about the reading of the A&P, and he says, "I stood there with my hand on a box of Hi-Ho crackers trying to remember if I rang it up or not." And at that point, he's describing the girls that he was talking about that come in the story. It was his point of view of, like, I guess their beauty or the resemblance of what they showed to him. They may not look the same to somebody else though, but they may look a little different to him just by the way they look. And then even in the first one where it said the first reading part, the first line was, in walks these 3 girls in nothing but bathing suits. I'm the second checkout slot with my back to the door, so I don't see them until they're over by the bread. So it's basically, it's giving his point of view and this showing the setting of where he's at. And then it's a fiction story, I'm pretty sure. And so he just talks about what the setting is, different points of view, which is his craft, trying to set the mood and the setting, the plot, and talks about the kind of basic language that he's going to use for writing writing of the story. And then in my next one, it says what fiction reading gives us. And it says, as the early 20th century Austrian writer Robert Musil once put it, when troubled, we like to imagine that there is only one law of life, the law of narrative order. What you mean by that is it's the view of our lives are meaningful and endowed with the same kind of narrative coherence found in good fiction. So it's fiction, but you're trying to make believing of what the best way of living the life is. Real life's always a little different than fiction. He goes on to say, fiction gives us the opportunity to investigate our own lives by comparison to notice how we put together the elements of our own stories. And then it also says families, emotions, decisions, and it kind of gives it a whole another background story to itself. And in reading, and then in my poem, I found the Alice Munro An Ounce of Cure. It was a weird kind of story, because you couldn't tell if what parts were real, what part were fake. So it kind of gave it that first initial reaction of reading it, and that's what the first initial reaction that they were talking about of fiction. So it kind of helps deal with what they're doing, and it's really an interesting reading, because it talks about, it has different emotions that you go through while you're reading the story, so it kind of makes it a good story. And that's Alice Munro's An Ounce of Cure, and that is chapter 6.